This is the continuation of a story I should never be telling. The first part ended with me standing in my kitchen at 3 a.m., holding a crude drawing that Bigfoot had left on my porch, a drawing that showed my son surrounded by what looked like flames or danger. The creature I'd been seeing for 27 years had just warned me that something terrible was going to happen to Michael, and I had less than 12 hours to figure out what, where, and how to stop it. If you haven't watched part 1, stop now and watch it first. None of this will make sense without that context. For those of you who are continuing, hit that like button immediately. Subscribe to this channel. Download this video the second it finishes, because part 1 was taken down twice before it stayed up, and I expect this conclusion will face even more suppression attempts. What I'm about to tell you involves a choice I made that saved my son's life, but revealed something about these creatures that changes everything we think we know about their relationship with humanity. My name is Robert Mitchell. I'm 63 years old. I've been seeing Bigfoot on my property in Washington State since 1996. For 27 years, I kept that secret. Until 3 months ago, when one of them left a warning on my porch about my son being in danger. This is what happened next. It was 3:17 a.m. on August 15th when I found that drawing. My son Michael was asleep upstairs. He was visiting for the weekend, staying in his old childhood bedroom. He was 29 years old, worked as a wildfire firefighter for the Forest Service. He'd been fighting fires all summer across Washington and Oregon, was exhausted, had come home for a few days of rest before heading back out. The drawing showed a stick figure, clearly Michael based on the height markings, surrounded by symbols that looked like flames. And in one corner, barely visible, was another figure, massive, reaching toward Michael as if trying to pull him away from the danger. I stood in my kitchen, staring at that drawing, my mind racing through possibilities. Michael was a firefighter. Flames meant fire. Was this warning about his job? About a specific fire he'd be fighting? But which one? And when? I pulled out my phone, opened the news, checked fire reports across the Northwest. There were dozens of active fires. It had been a brutal season. Michael's crew was scheduled to deploy to a major fire in Central Oregon in 2 days. Was that the danger? Or was it something else? I couldn't wake him up and show him the drawing. How would I explain it? Hey son, Bigfoot left a warning on our porch that you're going to die in a fire. He'd think I'd lost my mind. Or worse, he'd humor me, not take the warning seriously, and walk straight into whatever danger was coming. I needed more information. Needed to understand what exactly was being warned about. And there was only one way to get that information. I had to go find him. The creature who'd left the warning. Had to make contact in a way I'd carefully avoided for 27 years. Had to cross the boundary I'd maintained between observer and participant. I grabbed a flashlight, pulled on boots and a jacket, and walked out into the pre-dawn darkness. Headed toward the tree line at the back of my property, where I'd seen him most frequently over the years. Where I knew he watched from. Where I suspected he might be waiting to see if I understood the message. I got your warning. I called out to the dark forest. I understand my son is in danger, but I need more information. I need to know when, where, exactly what kind of danger. Please. If you can understand me, if you've been watching long enough to learn our language, help me understand how to protect him. Silence. Just the sound of wind in the trees and my own breathing. I waited maybe 5 minutes, feeling foolish, feeling desperate. Then I heard movement. Branches breaking. Something large approaching through the undergrowth. He emerged from the tree line maybe 30 yards away. 8 feet tall, broad shoulders, covered in dark fur that was grizzled with gray. The same one I'd been seeing for years. I recognized him by the scar on his left shoulder, visible even in the flashlight beam. An old injury I'd first noticed in 2004. We stared at each other across 30 yards of my property. The boundary line. The distance he'd always maintained. And for the first time in 27 years, I spoke directly to him. Thank you for the warning. Thank you for trying to protect my son. But I need to understand more. Can you show me? Can you help me understand what danger is coming? He didn't approach closer, but he made a sound. Not a roar or growl. something structured, syllables. And then he gestured, a series of movements that were clearly intentional communication. He pointed at the sky, or maybe at the rising sun on the horizon, then held up fingers, counting. 1, 2, 2 days. He pointed at himself, then at me, then made a sweeping gesture toward the forest. Come, follow. I'll show you. You want me to follow you? Into the forest. He made that sound again. Affirmation. Then he turned and started walking back into the trees, moving slowly, waiting for me to follow. I need you to stop here and comment. Tell me if you would have followed. Would you have trusted a creature you'd only observed from a distance for nearly 3 decades? Would you have walked into dark forest before dawn, following something that could kill you without effort, based on a crude drawing and gestures? Comment now, because what I chose to do next led to discoveries that explain so much about these beings' relationship with humanity. I followed. What choice did I have? My son's life was at stake. If this creature knew something, saw something, understood something that could help me protect Michael, I had to trust it, had to cross that boundary. We walked for maybe 45 minutes, through terrain I knew well from years of hiking my property, then into areas I'd never explored, deeper into the national forest that bordered my land. The creature moved with surprising silence for something so large, occasionally stopping to make sure I was keeping up, adjusting his pace to match mine. Finally, we reached a ridge overlooking a valley I didn't recognize. The sun was rising now, casting golden light across the landscape. And the creature stopped, gestured down into the valley, made that structured sound again. Then he started drawing in the dirt with a stick. He drew quickly, efficiently. A road, a vehicle, flames surrounding it, and stick figures, multiple figures, trapped. He pointed at one figure specifically, then pointed at me. Your son. This is going to happen to Michael? He'll be trapped in a vehicle surrounded by fire. The creature nodded. Clear, unmistakable human gesture. Then he drew more. Showed the road blocked by fallen trees. Showed flames on both sides. Showed the vehicle unable to move forward or back. A death trap. When? Where exactly? He gestured to the valley below us. Pointed to a specific road I could see winding through the forest. Then he held up 2 fingers again. 2 days. Then he made another gesture, this time mimicking driving, moving his hands like a steering wheel. Then he made a cutting motion. Stop. Block the road. Prevent passage. I stared at him, understanding slowly crystallizing. You're saying in 2 days, Michael will be driving on that road, and a fire will trap him. Unless the road is blocked first. Unless something prevents him from going that way. Another nod. Then he did something that made my breath catch. He pointed at himself, then mimicked cutting down trees, then gestured, blocking the road. I'll do it. I'll block the road. I'll save your son. Why? Why would you do this? Why warn me? Why show me? Why risk revealing yourself to help a human you don't even know? The creature was still for a long moment. Then he made a complex series of gestures. Pointed at me. Pointed at himself. Made a gesture that suggested watching, observing. Then pointed at the place where we stood. He'd been watching me for years. All those sightings, all those glimpses. He'd been observing me, my life, my family. Learning about us. Then he gestured to his chest, then to mine. Made a motion that brought his hands together. Connection. Understanding. Something like friendship, maybe, or at least mutual respect across the species barrier. And finally, he made a gesture I'll never forget. He pointed at the sky, spread his arms wide, encompassed the whole forest. Then he pointed at me, at the valley below, at everything. Then he made a negative gesture, shaking his head. Wrong. Humans doing it wrong. Destroying everything. But then he pointed at me specifically, made a different gesture. You different. You respectful. You deserve help. Tears were streaming down my face. This creature had been watching me for 27 years. Had seen me respect his space, never pursue him. Never try to prove his existence or exploit sightings for personal gain. Had observed how I lived, trying to minimize my impact, maintain my property sustainably, treat the forest with care. And that respect had earned something I never expected: his protection. His willingness to intervene in human affairs to save the son of a human who'd shown respect to his kind. "Thank you," I said, my voice breaking. "Thank you for watching, for caring, for trying to save him." He made another sound, softer this time. Then he turned and started walking away, back into the forest. Stopped after maybe 20 feet, looked back, and gestured one more time. "Go. Tell your son. Find another way. Keep him safe." I hiked back to my house as the sun fully rose. Got there around 8 a.m. to find Michael in the kitchen making coffee. "Morning, Dad. You're up early. Everything okay?" "Michael, I need to talk to you about your deployment. The fire in Central Oregon. The route you're taking to get there." He looked at me curiously. "How do you know about the route? That's not public information." I have a feeling, a strong feeling, that the main access road through the valley, the Forest Service road that runs through the National Forest. Yeah, Highway 224. That's our planned route. Why? I think you need to take a different route. I think that road is going to be dangerous. Maybe blocked by fire, maybe unstable. I have a very strong feeling you shouldn't use it." Michael studied me with concern. "Dad, are you okay? You seem really shaken up about this." I couldn't tell him the truth. Couldn't say Bigfoot warned me you're going to die on that road. So I lied. I just had a nightmare. A really vivid nightmare about you being trapped in your truck, surrounded by fire. And it felt real. Call it intuition, call it parental anxiety. I don't care. Just promise me you'll take a different route. Please. He clearly thought I was being irrational. But he also knew I wasn't prone to emotional outbursts or superstitious fears. "Okay, Dad. I'll talk to my crew chief. See if we can take the alternate route up through Sisters. It's longer, but if it makes you feel better." "It does. Thank you." The next 2 days were agony. I didn't tell him why I really wanted him to change routes. Didn't mention the drawing or the creature or what I'd been shown. Just lived with the terrible knowledge that somewhere in the forest, a being I'd watched for 27 years was working to block a road to save my son's life. On August 17th, Michael deployed with his crew. They took the alternate route through Sisters, adding 2 hours to their journey, but avoiding Highway 224 entirely. I spent that day checking fire reports obsessively, waiting for news, praying that the warning had been real and that the danger had been avoided. The news broke that evening. A massive fire had jumped Highway 224 that afternoon. Wind shifts had created a firestorm that swept across the road in multiple locations. Several trees had fallen, some from fire damage, some from wind, and some from causes the reports described as unclear, possibly deliberate cutting. The road was completely impassable. A supply convoy that had been using that route got trapped. 3 vehicles surrounded by flames, unable to move forward or back, blocked by fallen trees. All 7 people in that convoy died, burned alive in their vehicles, waiting for rescue that couldn't reach them through the flames and debris. Michael called me that night. His voice was shaking. "Dad, you saved my life. That nightmare you had, we would have been on that road. Our crew would have been in that convoy. We would have died today if you hadn't insisted we take a different route." I couldn't speak. Could only think about 7 people who died. 7 people who didn't have someone watching over them. 7 people who'd been in the exact place my son would have been if not for a warning from something that officially doesn't exist. "How did you know, Dad? How did you possibly know that was going to happen?" I didn't know. I just had a feeling. A strong feeling that I'm grateful you listened to. We talked for another hour. He was processing survivor's guilt, processing the close call, processing his mortality in a way that only near-death experiences can trigger. And I was processing something else. The weight of knowledge that couldn't be shared. The understanding that I'd been saved by something humanity refuses to acknowledge exists. The next morning, I walked to the back of my property. to the tree line where I'd seen him so many times. And I found something waiting for me. Another drawing, this one different. It showed two figures, one large, one smaller, standing together, and between them, a symbol that looked like a handshake or connection. Thank you for listening. Thank you for respecting. We are even now. I haven't seen him since. 3 months have passed, and there've been no more sightings. No more signs. I think maybe that final interaction changed something. Maybe revealing himself that directly, speaking through gesture, showing me exactly what was coming. Maybe that was too much exposure. Too much risk. Maybe he's moved to a different territory where humans don't know him, where he can go back to the comfortable anonymity his kind depends on for survival. Or maybe he's still watching, still observing from distances I can't detect, still keeping an eye on the human who showed respect and listened when it mattered. I don't know. Can't know. Can only hope that wherever he is, he's safe and undisturbed. I'm sharing this conclusion now because Michael keeps asking how I knew, keeps saying it's impossible that I just had a feeling. And I realized I have to tell someone the full truth, have to document what really happened so that if something happens to me, if I die with this secret, at least there's a record somewhere. At least someone will know that these beings aren't just watching us. They're intervening sometimes, protecting individuals who've earned their respect through decades of careful behavior. 7 people died on Highway 224 on August 17th. The official reports say trees fell due to fire damage and wind. But I know some of those trees were cut deliberately. I know because I was shown they would be. I know because a creature that shouldn't exist spent time and effort blocking a road to save one human life, my son's life, because I'd spent 27 years respecting his space and his right to remain hidden. The question that haunts me isn't whether Bigfoot exists. I know he does. The question is, how many other times have they intervened? How many other disasters have been prevented? Lives saved, tragedies averted by beings that watch us from the forests and occasionally, rarely, decide to help. How many close calls and lucky escapes and miraculous survivals are actually the result of intervention by a species we refuse to acknowledge? I don't have answers to those questions, only suspicions, only the knowledge of what happened to me and my son, only the understanding that we were saved by something conscious, compassionate, and hidden. Hit that like button one final time. Subscribe to this channel. Download both parts of this story and preserve them however you can. Because this testimony, this complete account of what happened when I finally broke my silence about Bigfoot and what he did when my son's life was in danger, needs to exist, needs to be documented, needs to be available for other people who might have similar experiences and need to know they're not alone. I never told anyone about Bigfoot for 27 years. Then he warned me about my son, and, in doing so, revealed something fundamental about these creatures. They're not just hiding from us. They're watching us, evaluating us, deciding which of us deserves protection and which of us doesn't, making choices about when to intervene and when to let nature take its course. My son is alive today because I earned that protection, because I spent nearly 3 decades respecting boundaries, maintaining distance, never exploiting sightings for personal gain, because one of them decided I was worth helping, that Michael was worth saving. 7 other people died that day, and I have to live with the knowledge that they might have been saved too if they'd had someone watching over them, if someone in their lives had earned that protection, if the beings that live in our forests had decided they were worth the risk of intervention. That's the terrible weight of this knowledge. That's what haunts me about this entire experience. Not that Bigfoot exists, I've known that for decades. But that survival sometimes depends on relationships we don't even know we're building, on respect we show without expecting returns, on decades of behavior that earn protection we never know we might need until it saves our lives. My name is Robert Mitchell. I never told anyone about Bigfoot until the day he warned me about my son. And what happened after that warning changed everything I understand about consciousness, compassion, and the hidden relationships between species that share this world. Thank you for listening. Thank you for preserving this testimony. And if you're ever in a position to show respect to something you don't understand, to something that watches from the shadows, do it. Because you never know when that respect might save your life or the life of someone you love. That's the end of this story. That's what happened. And that's why I'm speaking now, despite the risks, despite the ridicule, despite everything. Because some truths are too important to die with us.